Hello everybody, Chef Bravo here for Bravo Plant-Based Channel and BravoPB.com. Today's demonstration is going to be garbanzos. That is the theme for today. I'm going to demonstrate a hot garbanzo dish and a cold garbanzo dish. And I'm going to talk about the similarities of it. I know that a lot of you are going to be focused on the specific ingredients and the amounts and all that. But I'm going to talk about how similar these are, how they are similar, so that if you are home and you're trying to come up with a garbanzo dish and you don't have these particular ingredients, you can just go, okay, I know what to do. Sound good? All right, so that is the theme for today, garbanzos. So I'm going to get started with the hots so that we can get it going while it's cooking. I'll do the cold, and hopefully we'll be able to present them both together at the end. Sound good? All right. Okay, so empty pan, no tricks. Okay, maybe a little bit of water.
No rabbits.
No rabbits. Okay, I'm gonna turn this guy on, and what I want to do is do a quick, like a dry saute. Okay, and I'm gonna start out with some onions in here. Onions are gonna provide me with some depth of flavor. The hardest thing for me to do here is to feed someone who's allergic to onions and garlic. That is the absolute hardest thing for me, because I rely on onions and garlic for so much. Like, you guys know that we don't do any salt here, right? So onions and garlic are a major way for me to try to get some flavor into the food. So if you're allergic to onions and garlic, you are like my problem child. Not a problem child, but it's just hard, you know, again, because I can't use the salt, and then if that gets taken away, then it's hard. So depth of flavor, whether it's hot or cold, I always like to use them. So we're going to go ahead and add some red onions here to the pot. And the idea is to evaporate the water out of the onions to sort of concentrate their flavor, okay? And also to slightly caramelize them a little bit to, again, a different way to concentrate their flavor. I don't know how well you can hear it. Got a little bit of a sizzle going, okay? So that's kind of what I'm looking for. The next step is going to be my spices. So while that gets going, I'll show you what I have here. I have a mixture of mustard seeds, dried oregano, and somewhere here at the bottom I have some turmeric. This, by the way, was by request. We just made this dish here for you guys, and somebody wanted to see how we made it, so I don't know if that person is here or not, but I thought, oh, you know, sort of a good topic. But I wanted to give it a little bit of contrast with the cold dish as well. Yes, sir?
What was that? You said mustard seeds, turmeric?
Mustard seeds, ground turmeric, and dried oregano.
What is the name of this?
This is called, I call this my garbanzo and sweet potato chow chow. And it's sort of inspired by a dish that I learned a long time ago, which at this point does not look anything like this. But the turmeric and the mustard seeds and the oregano is sort of what stuck. And so I just sort of continued it. Are they equal parts? Yeah, a tablespoon of each. This is in my advanced cooking course at BravoPB.com. The amounts I brought is for the amounts that I have here. So I can get you that if you'd like. You're the recipe girl. 4 cups. 4 cups is what I had here. Or chopped onions. Okay, so now that's it. If I were you, I wouldn't worry so much about amounts rather than the technique, okay? Because that's where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck. Right now, I have my onions here caramelizing. I'll show you what this looks like. You see that bottom of that pot that's sort of starting to turn golden brown, okay? That's what I'm chasing, a little bit of that browning. Which means, as you can see here, I've evaporated this water out of the onions, okay? That means that I have a relatively dry and hot environment right in here, which is the perfect place to toast my spices, okay? And I want to toast my spices because that will increase the level, the amount of flavor that I can get out of them, okay? Dry spices right out of a container will give you about 50% of their power, so to speak, okay? You're only gonna get about 50% of flavor. If you toast them, you increase that by quite a bit, okay? That is why I am now going to add my spices and have an opportunity to toast them. Now toasting means 15-ish, 20-ish seconds, okay? At this point, I go ahead and add my diced yams.
Cooked, chef, or uncooked?
Dried. These are just peeled and diced.
Okay.
Okay. And there's no red pepper in here like we had last week. Some of you who were here remember I started choking myself out because the toasted red pepper, and then some of you started choking.
Sorry, what did you add?
We added the diced yams. Okay. Now we're gonna add a touch of apple cider vinegar. Okay, just a little, not too much. Don't overdo it.
Then half the bottle.
You'd be surprised, you know, some of you might thinking, whoa, that is a whole lot of vinegar that just went in there. Okay, it is true. So,
Approximately how many cups of potatoes?
this is a 4-quart. Correction, the onions was more of a 3-cup. This is 4-cup. Okay.
Are the ingredients in the amounts on your website?
Yes, they are.
So we'll
Yeah, yeah. Again, I was not sort of measuring the amounts. I just brought to show you the technique. Vinegar. You might think, whoa, that's way too much vinegar. That's going to be so sour. Believe it or not, it mellows out beautifully. Okay. What I do need is enough liquid to be able to cook my yams. Okay. Once the vinegar sort of cooks out, that acidity mellows out. So you might think, whoa, he just ruined it. No, it actually comes out pretty good. And some of you have already tasted this, right? Because we had this a couple days ago, so you know that it works. Okay? And I added just as much when I cooked the other batch. All right, so let's leave that one alone here for a second, because again, those yams are gonna take a little bit to cook. And now we can get going on a cold salad. Garbanzos, to me, are essential in a plant-based diet because they are so versatile. One of the things that makes them very versatile is actually their color. Because they're pretty light in color, they can turn into a spread, such as a hummus, okay? And depending on your ingredients, you can make it really nice and light if you need it, which gives you contrast to whatever other ingredients you might have. So if you're doing some sort of lettuce wrap and you'd like to have some hummus in there, the hummus is nice and light. Your lettuce could be a red leaf lettuce kind of a thing. So now you have contrast between the hummus itself and the lettuce, plus all the other ingredients. Okay. They can be turned into burgers, falafel kind of a thing. All right. So having them be sort of a light color makes them really, really versatile. Aside from the fact that they are very tasty, okay? And I'm sorry I'm doing this sort of large amounts because you guys eat a lot. Let's split this in half. Okay. Plus it shows better off for the camera when it's like a big amount. All right. Garbanzos, hot or cold, chopped up, ground up, pureed. They take very well. Whereas something like a darker beans, like a kidney bean or a black bean, they have a little bit more of a pronounced flavor. So with garbanzos, as you add other ingredients, the level of garbanzo flavor sort of mellows out, okay? With kidney beans and black beans, you see them because they're dark and they're right there. You can't sort of lose them, so to speak. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yes, sir.
Can I ask this is a total dummy question.
Absolutely.
I've never done any cooking at all. How do you get garbanzo beans? I've never seen them. Do you get them in cans or what's?
So the question is, how do we get garbanzo beans? The easiest way to be, yes, you can get them in cans.
Okay.
Second, most of the time they will be salted, okay? And if I'm not mistaken, one of the things that I have against canned food is that if it's sort of a cooked thing, I've seen where beans actually get cooked in the cans, okay? So they are packaged, dried, filled with the water and whatever else they're gonna put in them, and then they go into this big sort of oven cooking sort of contraption, okay? I don't know if every brand of cooked beans does it that way. I just know that there is at least one because I've seen it where they cook it inside the can, okay? Now, I don't know. They just show in one of those how it's made videos that you find on YouTube. They didn't specify the brand. They just said, you know, this is how food is made in America, yada, yada, yada.
How are those made?
These are made from scratch. So these were soaked overnight, and then that water was dumped out. Then the garbanzos went in a pot with vegetable broth, okay? And then I cooked them for roughly a couple hours. Now, this was 20 cups of dried garbanzo beans. So we have a large amount. At home, you're not going to cook 20 cups because you need a really big, a really big pot. So you're going to be doing 2-3 cups of garbanzos. Okay.
You can buy them fresh.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we cook our beans here.
In their own broth?
In the broth that we make here in house. Okay. Now, let me give this a quick stir.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you missed the giveaway. You could have got.
No card.
There. Hang on. I lost my thought. This will be cut out.
20
Sorry,
cups.
Garbanzo.
Yes.
Tony
Garbanzo,
cooking
okay.
a lot.
For some people, for some of you, you do not have the luxury to be in the kitchen 10 hours a day. Okay. To me, cooking beans is no problem because I'm going to be here anyways. Okay. But I talked a little bit last week about how everybody's got their own situation, everybody's got their own schedules, their own sort of family obligations. So for some of you, cooking beans from scratch is just not that feasible. It's almost impossible because you got to get up early in the morning and you got to go, okay? Because you got to save the world or whatever it is that you guys all do. So if eating canned garbanzos, even though it's not ideal, it's the way that you're going to eat your beans, and that's what's going to keep you away from other things, then I always say by all means do that, okay? If maybe getting a pressure cooker like those very popular Instapots is the way that you can make that happen, then do that. If you have a slow cooker and you just set them in there early in the morning and then when you come back at night they're ready to go, then do that. Okay? Whichever way works for you, works for me. Okay? Yes? If you use the cans, yeah, I would say yes, go ahead and rinse that. More than anything because most brands use a too high of a sodium level for what we'd like to see. Okay? All right. So garbanzos. They have this sort of tan color. Oh, very important. If you cook garbanzos from scratch, you want to overcook them slightly. Okay? You're smiling. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. Once garbanzos cool down, they harden up slightly. So if you cook your garbanzos just to the perfect tenderness level, you cool them down, now they're too hard. Okay? So that is a bonus tip here. So sort of a light tan color. To me, they're sweet, not like candy, but slightly sweet. For most people, they're sort of savory kind of thing. To me, they have a sweetness to them. And now, I'm going to add color, okay? And I'm going to add to the sweetness, I'm going to add a little bit of a tartness to this. And so I have here some half cherry tomatoes. And this is 3 cups. All right. Once I added the tomatoes, the whole thing changed. Okay, visually, it's that much more appealing. Okay, to go from here, you're like, eh, to here, you're like, oh, okay. Okay. Maybe you're still not interested in eating this, okay, but it's sort of getting there, right? All right, we're now going to add some salt in the form of kale. For those of you who don't like kale, this is actually a really good way to hide it. And by hiding, I mean the flavor. It's obviously, you're going to see it. All right.
4 cups.
That was more on the 4, but tightly packed. Now my measurements are here. If I'm looking at this and I can see all the ingredients, none of which is like too much, it's sort of like an evenly split amounts between the tomatoes and the garbanzo and the kale, that's good enough for me. You know, if that meant 3 cups, 4 cups, 6 cups, that's good. So I don't get too focused on the amounts. You know, I'm more of a, you know, does it look right? Okay, because now that I have all this looks even a little bit more interesting, at least to me. I don't know about you guys, maybe you guys are not big kale eaters, but to me it's starting to have that much more interest, okay? Because there's more color in here, okay? Anything you notice that's missing?
Onions or garlic. Purple.
You mean
Color was?
a flavoring agent.
Spices. Grain.
Dressing, yes sir. Okay, this is missing dressing. And you can tell because this looks dry, okay? So when you see this, you're like, well, there's things happening in there, there's colors, but your brain automatically goes, I'm gonna have to chew quite a bit. I'm gonna have to incorporate so much saliva into that so that I can pass it down, that the brain's going, well, you know, the cost analysis, too much work for whatever you're gonna get out of that, okay? So we need to incorporate some liquid into here. Let me give this a quick stir. All right. Okay. All right. So let's make sort of a dressing for this. But now we're gonna add some depth to flavor. So I'm adding some shallots to here. 1 shallot. We're gonna add 4 cloves of garlic. Okay. And some acidity. Something which I don't have in here yet. Okay, I need some acidity because I have sweet, I have salty, I have the sort of savory, for those of you for whom garbanzos are savory. We have green, we have the red, but we don't have any acid. Okay, and acid turns out to be quite helpful when you're trying to get some flavor. So we're gonna do this in the form of lemon. And these happen to be the last of our Meyer lemons that we have in-house from the property. And so I'm adding both the zest and the juice. Meyer lemons, if you're not familiar with them, they are less acidic, okay? They're not as sour as regular lemons. It's a sort of a pleasant acidity level. Now, I'm using the zest because it adds flavor to the dish.
You get a little thing like that,
What do I get?
the rasp, yeah.
This right here?
Yeah.
If you don't have one of these, I highly suggest that you do. This is one of my essential tools. It's called a Microplane. And you can buy this Amazon, Sur La Table, most like kitchen gadgety kind of places. If you go to my website, there is a suggested products page on there, and you'll find the link for that. Essential tool. The reason for that is, as you take the zest off, you don't take any of the white part, which is actually bitter. Okay, so it's all you're taking is that nice citrusy flavor. Okay, let me sort of clean up my mess here. There we go. This is not organized. All right, so now I'm going to cut these bad boys. And I'm going to add them to the blender here. I'm also adding some pre-toasted coriander and cumin seeds. This was 1 teaspoon of each.
Did you say cumin, coriander?
Cumin seeds and coriander seeds.
That's it.
Yep.
Use pre-toast those in the heat of the pan?
I'm sorry?
Just use the heat of the pan?
Yes, I just toasted them in a dry pan. Medium heat, 30, 40 seconds. Once you can start smelling the aroma of those spices, coming up, they're toasted. All right. And I'm gonna guess that my yams here are just about done. So I'll get to them in just a sec. Okay. So I have some acidity, I have depth of flavor, I have spices, okay, which I made sure to toast them to get more flavor out of them. So I've got a good sort of amount of flavor going in. To it, we're gonna add a sort of a fresh, earthy component, which is parsley. And the reason I'm chopping it up a little bit is because if I leave the whole thing, sometimes what they'll do is they'll just wind up on the blades. Okay. Now to this, I'm gonna add just a little bit of vegetable broth, only because I need enough liquid for the blender to do its thing. So I added probably a 1/4 cup, and just so that I have enough liquid in there to make the blender go. No other reason. This would be particularly important if you don't have Meyer lemons and you're using regular lemons, okay? It can get to be too sour, okay? So you definitely want to cut that down with a little bit of broth. And so essentially all I did was make a very quick, simple lemon parsley dressing. Okay, no, nothing out of the ordinary. All right, let me check on this real quick, just because. Another safety sort of, another trick that is safety-wise. When you are in front of a pot, whatnot, you always want to take the lid and open it away from your face, not towards your face, because that's when you get the punch of steam coming right at you. All right, so I just want to poke one of these. Oh yeah. So no resistance. My knife is just sort of going. At that point, I add 2.5 cups of small diced cauliflower. Okay, I look and see that there's still enough liquid in there, and I cook. And now at this point, my yams are cooked. I just want to make sure that the cauliflower is nice and tender. Okay, so this will take maybe 2 minutes, and it'll be done. All right. So now. Dressing, a lot of it's going to stick to the blender, so I might take a little bit of broth just to sort of wash it down. And okay, and now I can get in here, mix it all up. Suddenly, if you see this again, there's a very important factor that has now been added to this, which is the moisture factor. Now your brain goes, oh, cost analysis. That's probably not going to take as much work. I don't know if it's going to taste good, but visually, I am interested, okay? Give me a little bit. Once you taste it, then your brain decides, yeah, it's pretty good. I'll have some more. Okay? Or if they give you a full portion, you decide, I'm gonna eat it all, or I'm gonna try to hand it off to somebody else. You know, kind of thing. That happens, right? You guys go through that? All right. So fairly simple salad. Set it off to the side here. Clean up my mess.
I think another option to that would be tarragon.
Oh, absolutely.
Soak it in water and the seeds and you get a real good sour taste.
To this, you could be adding tarragon, chives, cilantro, basil, combination of the above. You know, this is not sort of strictly just parsley. Okay, it's just an idea. Okay. Now, some of you ate this cold, okay, because we cooked it as such, we cooled it down, and then we served it for you guys in the salad area, okay? To me, this is a wonderful dish hot or cold. I actually prefer it. I have a slight preference for it to be hot, but cold, I can eat it all day long, okay? The final touch to this, let me things again. I'm gonna add some cilantro.
You're talking about the cold salad now?
No, hot.
Oh,
This is the
hot.
hot. The cold salad is finished.
Okay.
For some of you, I'm about to ruin this. There are some people who have a genetic thing where cilantro will taste like soap. Okay, anybody here? Soapy cilantro? No? Okay. It happens for some people.
I've heard people say that, but I always loved it.
It's a genetic thing. I love cilantro. I think cilantro is great. Interestingly enough, I have a thing. It's more of a thing. I loathe dill. I cannot stand the smell of it. I just, if dill touches anything, it's ruined for me.
So you're using the stems of both cilantro
Yeah.
and parsley?
Yeah. The stems are perfectly fine. The only thing I cut out is the very dry, ground up, very tips of it. The stems, believe it or not, taste different from the leaves, but I actually like the flavor of both. I think it's very tasty. If you prefer to just do the just the leaves, by all means, totally okay. All right. So now, if I wanted to really do this hot, then I make sure I add my garbanzos, so the garbanzos get heated up. And at this point, it's just a matter of heating up the garbanzos. Nothing else. All right. You'll see that the cauliflower has got this nice yellow sort of hint to them, and that's because of the turmeric. Okay, the turmeric gives it that nice sort of neon yellow, which I think is kind of nice. If you've ever cooked with yellow curry, that's what gives yellow curry its yellowness. It's the turmeric within that mixture. And so at this point, I'm just gonna let this cook for another 30 seconds and it'll be done. I'm going to go ahead and add the cilantro to this. And let's just get going. So now, nice garbanzo and yam chow chow.
Wow, all that vinegar is gone.
All that what?
It cooked in, the vinegar.
Yeah, the vinegar cooked in. There's a slight bit left. Let's see, this is a quart. I probably added somewhere in the 3 1/4 cups. There might be 1/8 of a cup left within all that.
Wow.
And again, although it might seem like a lot, once you add the sweetness from the yams and the, for me, the garbanzos, but for a lot of people, the savory part of it, and certainly the earthiness of the cilantro, and then you have the spices in there, your brain does not get overwhelmed by the leftover acidity there of the vinegar.
You never used any broth. You never used any broth.
Not for this one. I've made that mistake actually. When I first started doing this, I thought this is just too much. So I would add a little bit of the vinegar and some broth. And there was just never enough acidity there, so I didn't have to add vinegar. The next time I would do like half vinegar, half broth, and it still was not enough. So then I said, nope, it's just gonna be all vinegar, and then I can figure it out later.
And do you use the same recipe all the time for your broth?
Pretty much.
How do you make the broth?
Ah, that's a whole nother cooking
Is it
demonstration.
really a big deal?
Yeah.
Very involved?
Mhm. All right. So as you can see, we have nice, colorful food. Okay. The thing about colorful food is that it entices you. Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked about what the three main ingredients for a successful dish. Okay, and I said it was colors, flavors, textures. Okay. So color-wise, this is sort of the hook. You're like, ooh, what is that? Okay. Food is a sort of a seductive kind of thing. If it doesn't look good, you're just not interested. Okay. And it could be a, you know, SOS free kind of a thing, or it could be a steak and potato kind of thing. If it doesn't look good, you've lost your audience. So the first trick is to make it look good. Okay. After that, you got to make sure you have the right flavor combinations, the different textures, and you come up with a great dish. But garbanzos, for those of you who are big on protein, okay, check. Depth of flavor, onions and garlic over here, check. Variety of flavor profiles, okay. We have the acidity from the lemon juice here and from the vinegar, check, check. We have saltiness and sweetness here, and the tartness from the tomatoes, okay? We have the sweetness from the yams over here with the acidity of the vinegar, the earthiness of the cilantro. Both of these have toasted spices in there to round out the whole thing, all right? So in my brain, this is sort of the same dish, believe it or not. Okay, so a lot of people ask me, you know, I need this recipe for that. And a lot of times in my head, I'm just a one-trick pony. Okay, it's got to look good. You put it in enough contrasting flavors together, you know, different textures. It's the same every single time. Okay, the end result is different, obviously. Okay, but let's suppose that you don't have one of the ingredients. So let's say cherry tomatoes, not available. What is red and sort of sweet tart that you could use?
Red pepper.
Bell peppers, there you go, boom. You don't have kale, because there wasn't kale that day.
Swiss chard.
Swiss chard, spinach, arugula, okay? Let's say that we don't have cilantro for this one. Mint. Mint would be a great substitution here. We talked about tarragon. Let's say that we don't have yams, okay? And so we lost that beautiful orange sweet kind of thing. What else could we add? Carrots. Sweet and orange. Boom. See? So it's not that complicated, okay? It's just, I don't want this to look all green. Okay, so I have some red in here. I have some light color garbanzos, great. There's some orange, there's some yellows, there's some greens, okay? You see how it's the same thing, okay? This is the same dish, okay, quote unquote. I don't know if that makes any sense. All right, questions?
Any question?
Yes, sir.
You say that dry spices are better, because I have a lot of spices in my garden when I use them.
If you have them in your garden, they're not spices, they're herbs.
Well, I'm talking about, herbs.
Yeah, so
I'm
herbs,
talking about the parsley or stuff like that. Is it better dry?
is not, okay, so your question is, are fresh herbs better than dried spices? So a fresh parsley versus a dried parsley, okay. What's better, grape or a raisin?
Depending on
They're
what you're looking
different,
for.
they're just different.
They're different, okay. Once you have something in the, especially herbs, you probably heard this before. If you don't have fresh herbs, substitute it with the dried form and do a third of it. So instead of a tablespoon of fresh cilantro, do a teaspoon, which is a third, of dried cilantro, okay? It's grapes and raisins, okay? A raisin can never taste like a grape again, okay? So it's different. Dried cilantro versus fresh cilantro, it'll have a different flavor. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How long will each of those dishes last?
How long will these last?
Freeze?
Okay. I would not
Maybe, yeah.
freeze either one of them. They don't thaw out well. The acidity level in them will allow them to last in the 5-6 day. After that, they're probably still edible, but the flavor starts to change a little bit. For example, here the cherry tomatoes start to lose their own natural liquid. It starts to get soggy, kind of a thing. You lose that the look, and suddenly it's not as appealing anymore. Yeah, but wholesome, 6-ish days. Yeah. Let's see. Can anybody tell me what cilantro is called across the pond?
Coriander.
All right, here you go. You get yourself a courtesy of BravoPB.com bottle opener.
My daughter lives in New Zealand.
There you go. It's a bottle opener, picnic silverware set, and a retractable metal straw.